Welcome to the More Than Fitness podcast.
And hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Minisode number 114 on the More Than Fitness podcast. Now, I'm looking at you guys on the video podcast. You guys can tell I'm getting a little bit smaller, more condensed, and you guys can hear me on the audio podcast that I'm somewhat whispering, and that's because my girlfriend's in the other room on a call. She's in law school doing important things, and I'm out here filming a video for you guys about some nonsense fitness stuff. Excuse me, and also clearing my throat into the mic, which is not good. But yeah, wanted to be upfront with you guys. That's why I'm speaking a little bit softer on this mini-sode, but nonetheless, I'm feeling good about this mini-sode, and it's going to be a little bit different than what we normally do because we're going to kind of learn together on this, and the topic of today is going to be caffeine, and I think the title of this mini-sode is going to be how much is too much? So how much caffeine is too much and what the science says. And every time I want to learn about a specific supplement, I always go to a site called examine.com, and it's a very non-biased, evidence-based resource for sports supplements and also nutrition, but their primary focus is on supplement and the cutting-edge research on supplement science. And I thought, instead of me regurgitating things back and forth to you about the article that I have in front of me, I wanted to go through it with you, and I think it's pertinent first to let's figure out what caffeine does, right? So why is caffeine good? Why is caffeine good? Speaking is hard. So let's go ahead and get right into it. I'm sure, like many of you guys, yes, I'm sure many of you consume caffeine every morning. I've already had my caffeine this morning. I actually had it in the form of a pre-workout. I have been taking pre-workouts in the morning, and not, Jack 3D or some crazy pre-workout or anything like that. It's more of like a nootropic stimulant. And I typically take PES Science, their pre-workout, and it's good. It's got like 160 milligrams of caffeine in it, plus a couple other goodies. And I like it often better than drinking a 0-calorie Monster in the morning because I don't like the carbonation. And also I'm not a coffee drinker. So sorry to break any hearts out there, but I know that if I got into coffee, I would love it. And I have an addictive personality with things. So I skip the coffee. I don't want to get into it and waste more money than I already do on caffeine products by getting into coffee. So point is, you probably drink coffee, drink 0-calorie energy drinks, drink diet drinks, take pre-workout, one of those. And if you're a straight edge person, then you're probably not listening to this anyway. But according to examine.com, so caffeine is a powerful stimulant. Okay, I got that part down. And it can be used to improve physical strength and endurance. So those are already two benefits that are pertinent to us, physical strength and endurance. And then also the fun part that we like, it is classified as a nootropic because it sensitizes neurons and provides mental stimulation. Boy, does it ever. Habitual caffeine use is also associated with, get this, a reduced risk of Alzheimer's, cirrhosis, and liver cancer. So it's healthy for you, right? Let's see here. Like I said, we're gonna go through this together. Caffeine's main mechanism concerns antagonizing adenosine receptors. Adenosine causes sedation and relaxation when it acts upon its receptors located in the brain. Simply, caffeine prevents this action and causes alertness and wakefulness. So it basically it prevents you from falling asleep. It doesn't always, especially if you're a habitual user, it's not always going to give you that same euphoric feeling every time you get, maybe whenever you first start taking caffeine. But what it will do is it will increase alertness and it'll also keep you awake. So if you do try and take caffeine and then take a nap afterwards, even though some of you may feel like you might be able to do that, and some of you may be able to, but I think I know caffeine will make that harder. Let's see. Habitual caffeine use leads to tolerance. This is what we all know, because as the more and more you take caffeine, the same feeling isn't the same as whenever you first start taking it, as I just mentioned, yet again. So let's see. This means the effects of caffeine will be diminished, often to the point where the only benefit a user experiences is caffeine's anti-sleep effect. What I just mentioned. It's an anti-sleep effect. That sounds cooler than what I said. This is an insurmountable tolerance, which means more caffeine will not overcome it. A month-long break from caffeine will reduce tolerance, which is super difficult. All right, so now let's get into how to take it. And real quick, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through what Examine says, and then I'm going to give like my own personal take on my experience and stuff, but I'll try and keep this tight. All right, so how to take caffeine. So how much is too much? How much should we be taking on a regular basis, et cetera, right? Let's get into that. So caffeine dosages should be tailored to individuals. If you're new to caffeine supplements, start with 100 milligram dose. And for 100 milligram dose, for most people, if you don't know levels of caffeine in typical drinks, that's going to be about a standard cup of coffee, right? It's going to be about 100 milligrams in a standard cup of coffee. For another reference, Diet Coke, I believe, is like 46 or 47 milligrams of caffeine in a typical 12-ounce can. Let's see. Coffee is 100 milligrams. A Monster is going to have 160 milligrams in it. And then you have something like a Bang energy drink, which has 300 milligrams of caffeine in it. Okay, so this says typically 200 milligrams of caffeine is used for fat burning supplementation, while acute strength increases occur at higher doses, 500 milligrams and above. Now, just because I say that does not mean that you should start taking 500 milligrams every single day and hope for the strength increases. I think, oh yeah, here we go. It says it here in just a sec. Many of caffeine's effects, including fat burning, strength benefits, and euphoria, are subject to tolerance and may not occur in people used to caffeine no matter how large the dose is. So if you're a habitual caffeine taker, just bumping things up to 500 milligrams every day, don't expect massive increases in strength or something. I would say that if you are somebody who's maybe has a very low tolerance to it, it's just you're a newer person to caffeine, taking something like a 500 milligram dose, I would say that would definitely make me stronger, or at least feel stronger. Let's see. Researchers tend to use a dosage range of 4 to 6 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. So 4 to 6 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. Let me pull up my trusted calculator real quick, and I'm going to do math for myself and give you guys an idea. So 4 to 6 milligrams per kilogram. So I am 187 pounds. Divide that by 2.2 to get my kilogram weight, because 1 kilogram equals about 2.2 pounds. And so that puts me at about 85 kilograms. And if we do 4 to 6 milligrams per kilograms of body weight, for me, if I do 85 times 4, that's about 340. So the lower end of the range for me is going to be about 340 milligrams. This is for to see these effects of caffeine. That doesn't mean that you have to take this much every single day. And that actually aligns with what I typically do. I think that's about how much I take. I take that pre-workout in the morning, which is about 160 milligrams. And then after lunch, I typically have a 0-calorie Monster, and that's going to be another 160 milligrams. So that puts me about 320. And then I have a Diet Coke typically in the afternoon or at nighttime with dinner. So that's 47 milligrams. And so I'm looking at about 350, 360 milligrams of caffeine per day. I would say on most days, it's about 300 to 400 milligrams per day. And what I have noticed, so that's it for me reading on examine.com. But so for you guys, do the math, 4 to 6 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. Actually, I think what you guys should do, the very first thing you should do is try and calculate how much caffeine you do take on a regular basis. I think this is super important to at least gain the awareness of how much you're consuming on a regular basis. Because I think people can, especially people who really love coffee, you can just be drinking coffee all day long and not even realize that you're up in the 400 to 600 milligrams per day. And I think what I have seen is, to have it here, I don't know. I don't think it does, but here we go. How much caffeine is too much? So for healthy adults, up to 400 milligrams per day is considered safe. So that's the same benchmark that I use, and that's typically what I recommend to clients and other people who ask me as well. Yeah, of course, there's exceptions. If you're pregnant or breastfeeding, women are advised to consume no more than 200 milligrams per day. And people with cardiovascular health issues should consider limiting their caffeine intake altogether. So the downsides of caffeine can have a detrimental impact on your blood pressure, eye pressure, and acid reflux. So those are all the things that I would consider with this. But for me, I have found that whenever I do go over that 400 milligram threshold per day, I tend to just start to be more jittery. I tend to start to be more anxious. My anxiety is higher. I'm more irritable. Things just trigger me more quickly. And I just don't feel good. I feel wired, but not in a good way. And so I think being very mindful of this and your caffeine intake on a regular basis is pertinent. And then if you do have these effects on a regular basis, I would start to slowly taper off down by 50 to 100 milligrams every other week or something like that. You don't want to just go completely cold turkey, because then you really will have withdrawal effects. Another thing I want to note, and I'll end it here, is people tend to like to not eat anything in the morning and just have their coffee or their Monster or just some type of caffeine source, and they do it on an empty stomach because it feels better, right? You don't have anything in your bloodstream. You don't have any, for the most part, you don't have food going around there to blunt the effects of your caffeine intake. And so people like to do that in the mornings, but then they also wonder why, after a couple hours of waking, they're super wired and jittery and anxious, and they start off their day just in this very reactive state. And I'm like, hey, it's probably because you're not fucking eating anything in the morning. So if you find yourself very anxious in the morning and very reactive and irritable or whatever, it's like, are you actually eating breakfast? You can still have that coffee with breakfast, but I would highly advise against having simply just caffeine by itself. Food also is going to bring down some of your anxiety. It's going to level out your hormones. It's going to make your well-being. It's going to make you feel better overall. That's why it is typically important. I would recommend, especially if you're prone to this anxious feeling in the morning, have at least a small breakfast with your caffeine. For me, that's typically just going to be like a protein shake, maybe a handful of blueberries for another nootropic effect, because that's what blueberries does. One of the benefits of blueberries, have that little combo, and then have your caffeine after that. So that would be my advice, and that is that for caffeine intake. I hope that helped you guys. I think it was a fun little thing, and I got to learn a little bit too. And yeah, that is it. Thank you guys, as always, for hold on. And that is it for Minisode number 114. Thank you guys, as always, for listening and for watching. See ya.